The joke started the moment she entered the staging area, subtle at first, then careless and loud, as seasoned operators noticed the dark tattoo curling just above her wrist, partially hidden beneath her sleeve, a mark that didn't fit their rigid image of a precision sniper. Some chuckled that she looked more like a rebel than a soldier, others whispered that tattoos were distractions, signs of attitude, not discipline, but she ignored them all, quietly assembling her rifle with a steady focus that suggested long nights and longer missions, her movements controlled, deliberate, as if the noise around her didn't exist, while the desert sun climbed higher and the range officer announced the start of the qualification exercise, unaware that the woman they were mocking had already survived battles most of them had only studied on briefing screens. As the first targets appeared at extreme distance, confidence still lingered among the men who had left, but it began to crumble with every pull of her trigger, because her shots weren't just accurate, they were flawless, landing center mass with a rhythm so precise it felt unnatural, as if the rifle were an extension of her breath. The range grew quiet, jokes replaced by narrowed eyes and stiff postures, the tattoo now forgotten as they watched a sniper who read wind shifts before instruments could confirm them, who adjusted elevation without hesitation, who fired with the calm certainty of someone who had done this not in training, but under real fire, and by the time the final target dropped, no one was smiling anymore. They were staring, unsettled, realizing they had badly underestimated the woman in their midst. Then command gave the order that changed everything, instructing the sniper to step forward and remove her mask for identification, and as she lifted it, recognition spread through the group like ice through veins, because her face matched classified images locked away in restricted files, the legendary operative rumored to operate alone behind enemy lines, the sniper whose tattoo wasn't art but a unit symbol earned through missions that officially never happened. The room stood frozen as the weight of their earlier laughter crashed down on them, and in that silence, they understood the truth that the woman they had mocked wasn't proving herself today, she was merely reminding them who she had always been, and why some names are spoken quietly, with respect, and never joked about again. The silence after her unmasking was heavier than gunfire, broken only by the faint hum of equipment as officers exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they were standing in the presence of someone whose reputation had been hidden behind redacted reports and sealed operations. The tattoo that once drew laughter now carried a different weight, its lines symbolizing a brotherhood few were ever allowed to join, and as she stood at ease, rifle slung casually across her shoulder, it became clear she wasn't seeking approval or recognition, because she had already earned both in places where mistakes cost lives, not pride, and the range no longer felt like a training ground but like a classroom where everyone else had just learned a painful lesson. Command called for a secondary evaluation, not out of doubt, but out of necessity, pushing the exercise into live scenario simulations that tested not just accuracy but decision-making under pressure, and while others showed strain, she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had navigated real chaos, calling wind corrections without hesitation, adjusting positions instinctively, and coordinating overwatch as if she could see the battlefield unfold seconds ahead of everyone else. Each command she gave was short, precise, and impossible to ignore, and slowly the same men who had joked earlier began to follow her lead, trusting her judgment without question, because survival has a way of silencing ego. During a brief pause, one of the senior operators finally spoke, his voice low, asking about the tattoo, no longer mocking but cautious, almost respectful, and she answered without emotion, explaining it marked her first confirmed mission with a unit that never appeared on any roster, a reminder of teammates lost and victories never acknowledged. The group listened closely, understanding now that the ink wasn't about rebellion or attention, but memory and discipline forged under fire, and in that moment, the divide between her and the rest of them disappeared, replaced by something far more powerful: earned respect. As the exercise concluded, reports were filed and equipment packed away, but the atmosphere had permanently changed, because the laughter that once echoed through the staging area was gone, replaced by quiet nods and careful words, and when she walked past the same men who had joked earlier, none of them met her eyes with arrogance anymore. Instead, they stood straighter, aware that legends don't always arrive announced or decorated. Sometimes they come masked, silent, carrying nothing but a rifle, a tattoo, and a history heavy enough to freeze a room the moment it's revealed. That evening, as the sun sank behind the ridgeline and the bay settled into a low, uneasy calm, conversations quietly shifted from routine debriefs to whispered reflections about the day, because no one could shake the image of how quickly confidence had turned into humility. In the mess hall, her presence changed the energy of the room, not because she demanded attention, but because experience followed her like a shadow, and even the most seasoned operators found themselves replaying her shots in their minds, realizing they had witnessed skill sharpened far beyond doctrine, forged in places where failure was not an option and survival depended on perfection. Later that night, command staff reviewed performance data that confirmed what everyone already knew: her accuracy exceeding standards by margins rarely recorded, her decision-making ranked flawless under simulated stress, and yet the reports only hinted at the deeper truth that her calm came from years of operating alone, unseen and unsupported, where every breath, every trigger pull, carried consequences no training range could replicate. When her name appeared on the screen, marked with clearance levels few possessed, even the officers sat back in silence, understanding that she wasn't being evaluated, she was being reassigned. By morning, word had spread quietly through the unit, and when she geared up to leave, there were no jokes, no sideways glances, only respectful distance as operators watched her move with the same quiet purpose she had arrived with, the tattoo once again partially hidden beneath her sleeve. As the transport lifted off, those left behind understood something they would carry into every future mission: that assumptions can be deadly, that legends often walk unnoticed, and that the woman they had laughed at would forever be remembered as the sniper who taught them humility without ever raising her voice. In the days that followed her departure, the unit returned to routine drills, but nothing felt routine anymore, because her presence had quietly rewritten their understanding of expertise and leadership, and instructors began referencing her techniques during training, pointing out how she read terrain like a language and treated patience as a weapon. Even mistakes were now measured against the standard she had set, and the tattoo that once sparked laughter had become an unspoken symbol among the ranks, a reminder that real experience doesn't announce itself. Rumors spread beyond the base, carefully distorted as all military stories are, but at the core of every version was the same truth: that a masked sniper with a quiet voice had outperformed everyone and vanished without ceremony. Some said she was reassigned to a high-risk border operation, others whispered about deep cover overwatch in hostile territory, and though no one knew for certain, every operator felt a strange sense of pride and unease, knowing they had crossed paths with someone operating on a level few would ever reach. Months later, during a joint operation briefing, her name appeared briefly on a classified support list, and the room fell silent again as recognition flashed across familiar faces. Because the memory of that day on the range hadn't faded, commanders spoke carefully, emphasizing coordination and trust, but the operators understood the subtext: if she was involved, failure was not an option, and every decision mattered, because somewhere beyond the map lines, the sniper with the tattoo was already in position. As the briefing ended and teams prepared to deploy, one of the younger soldiers asked quietly about the tattoo, not with mockery but curiosity, and a senior operator answered simply that it wasn't something you joked about, because it marked someone who had earned their silence. And in that moment, The lesson came full circle. The laughter that once filled the range had been replaced by respect passed down like doctrine, ensuring that her story would live on, not as a joke, but as a warning. Never to underestimate the unseen. The deployment that followed was unlike any the unit had faced before, operating in unfamiliar terrain where intelligence was thin and consequences were immediate, and from the first night onward, her influence was felt even though she remained unseen, because targets were neutralized before they became threats, patrols were redirected moments before ambushes, and every successful move traced back to quiet overwatch from a position no one could identify, reinforcing the belief that the sniper with the tattoo was somewhere out there, shaping the battlefield without ever stepping into the light. During one tense operation, communications briefly went dark, and uncertainty rippled through the team as they took cover, waiting for orders that didn't come, until a single, calm